G'day legends, I hope that you're all doing well. Now, there's something I just want to talk about before we'll have a look at the maps, where we have seen some changes over the past 24, 48 hours, and as well as some other news. Now, there's some really stupid and dangerous things that I see shared and celebrated by large groups about this war. And I really think people should try and maintain some humanity, especially pricks like me, sitting in safety, profiting in money and notoriety off this war, and there's so many doing this. Now, this is just a few examples of what I've seen from some pages, and some with hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of followers with a lot of influence. Now, a lot of this is fairly tame compared to just some of the things I see on both sides, and I can't show some because it's too disgusting for YouTube, and it's just disgusting in general, but it's just stupid seeing things like this. It really makes me question their standing, especially these places and pages working in the information space. And seeing it celebrated by so many, I think, is disappointing as just a human and very dangerous. Now, this is dehumanization. Now, dehumanization is the psychological process of dehumanizing the enemy, making them seem less human and hence not worthy of their humane treatment. Now, this can lead to increased violence, human rights violations, war crimes, and no, make no mistake, we've seen this all over the battlefield. Russia has committed atrocities on a scale we haven't seen in Europe in 80 years. And also there's many examples of Ukraine executing POWs and using banned munitions. Don't mistake this. War is hell. 99% of people are sitting on their couch tweeting have never seen any of the actual effect of war on people. They think war is numbers on a screen and a line moving on a map, and a lot even see it as an opportunity. They don't see that it's young men chewed up by war machines that have been perfected over hundreds of years at killing them. Civilians caught in devastation of unimaginable hardship. But if you dare mention anything to do with not buying into more human suffering and death and, constantly beating that war drum, you'll be shunned off the internet. Now, don't think that Russia and Ukraine is the only place this is happening. No, this is just the only place getting mainstream attention and the only place you can talk about the war and not be restricted online, because I've tried to talk about Syria and Iran and was restricted instantly. But this is because big tech and media have chosen a side and they're happy rolling in the millions of views and impressions and turning that into millions of dollars with very little backlash. So I'm sorry for the rant, but we do have a few map updates and then we'll talk about some news. So as always, in the middle here we have Ukraine, the capital of Kyiv. The red indicating occupied territory from Russia since 22, and the purple since 2014, this being Crimea and Donetsk. We've got Romania, Poland, Belarus, and Russia around here. Now, where we'll go into and have a look is Bakhmut, as we have seen some major shifts over the last couple of days. Now, I say major shifts, this is only in the tens or hundreds of meters, but in somewhere as built up as this and somewhere where the fighting has been as fierce as this, any movement, either east or west, north, south, is major in both directions. So you will know that we didn't have an update yesterday of Deep State, but we have had 3 today, what I guess makes up for it. So today is the 6th of April and maybe the 7th, depending where you are. So we'll go back to the 4th. So this is what it was looking like on the 4th, and my voice broke then. And then we'll go forward to the morning of the 6th at 8:54. We see this push around this reservoir here. This was the reservoir which was allegedly blown up to flood the northern sector of Bakhmut, but we didn't see any further evidence of this. But what we've also seen is this southeastern sector also push up in line with where it was in the spire as well. But what we do see then, further on in the day, this is at 13:05, so 5 hours later on, that the angle has either been assessed as wrong or they've changed the angle attack by this arrow here. And then the latest one being 17:51 in the afternoon, which is only, I believe, about an hour old. So that is what we saw. So we mainly saw the difference between this and that, which we see all over the front line, especially in the south and the north, as major shifts and a further move through Bakhmut. So let's have a look at this compared to the Rybar map, if we can get a reasonable picture of what it's looking like. And I think this is looking fairly similar. So the Rybar map of today isn't showing that they have actually got territory around this reservoir here, although there is grey zone around it, which is being shown similarly. And as well, the sectors on the south and the east are looking fairly similar, if you ask myself. So where we see this turn right, then left, which is this kink in the road here, if we follow that straight up, it's saying that Russia is fairly close on the railway here. Now, the railway, you can see crossing into here. So it is fairly similar. I think in the north, Rybar is actually showing more Russian territory, but in the east, I actually think the deep state may be showing some more. But otherwise, very similar all throughout. So let's also have a look then at the ISW of today, which updated only a few hours ago, and the ISW of yesterday, excuse my head in it. And it is showing very similar as well. So Russia, where they've pushed out on this sector, have managed to hold it for another 24 hours and have managed to push on the east side of this reservoir as well. Maybe that's what we're seeing on the deep state, and Rybar just showed a little bit differently. But we're also seeing that this sort of nub pushed out. They have closed up on the east side. But you've got to remember the yellow here is only claimed control, not assessed. So you need to take everything with a grain of salt, exactly like I say. But there is many things of seeing Russia right in the center of Bakhmut. And if we have a look at Bakhmut, comes all the way down here, or all the way around and up here, that Ukraine is actually only holding on to a small piece of Bakhmut left, maybe in about 20%. Now, we know Ukraine is not leaving Bakhmut, which is a very heavily debated topic, whether the right or wrong decision. But you need to remember, we don't have all the information that commanders will have, but we can speculate, I guess, because that's what the internet is for. So, but leader of Wagner Group, Prigozhin, has said it must be said clearly that the enemy is not going anywhere. They have an organised defence inside the city, first along the railway, then in the high-rise area of the western quarter of the city. So this is the western quarter of the city that is remaining, and this is the railway through here. When we solve all three issues, then we can go anywhere. Someday I will tell you in detail about the problems and their solutions. So we know both sides are fighting incredibly tough in here, but Wagner Group is managing to make ground day by day. And we may see some shifts tomorrow, and I am expecting, but I've been expecting for months and I've been wrong, a major shift up too. So one idea of Ukraine not leaving Bakhmut, and the one I think probably has the most validity, is that Wagner Group has been seen to be a formidable enemy with capability to break through stagnant lines by unconventional and a lot of times very cruel means. Whether you like it or not, they are making ground in these regions. But what the theory is Ukraine are holding Bakhmut, even at losing some ground, but they're delaying Wagner's redeployment elsewhere and potentially having these better trained troops that are within Wagner Group in one area. So if an offensive starts, well, they're not dispersed across multiple fronts or trying to achieve a further breakthrough in somewhere like Avdiivka or Seversk. So let's have a look up into the front line and see if we've seen any shifts. So we'll just zoom out on the front line here. And we'll go from the 4th to the 6th. So we saw just to the northwest of Bakhmut some more claimed Russian control, and as well to the south of Bakhmut, only in the last map, so between 1300 on the 6th and 1700, we saw Russia make some gain here as well. Let's have a look in the north, see if we've seen any further shifts over the past 24 hours, not on the deep state map. So then we'll come down into Avdiivka region and have a look. So what did we see? So between the 4th and the 6th, we did see Ukraine take some more territory here. What about to the south of Avdiivka? We saw just a tiny bit of ground here to the west of Pisky. Now, Pisky was somewhere that was under absolute insane fighting earlier on in this war, and was one of the places we saw Russia bring to bear so much artillery at once. But no shift in Mariinka. Now, this is looking different in Vuhledar. As you remember, there is normally 2 of these little spires. So we'll go back to the 4th and then to today. This is what we've seen. So Russia has either fallen back or Ukraine has taken some more territory in this tree line here. But along the rest of the front, we haven't seen any other major shifts. So where we will have a look at is we'll just go down into Avdiivka and see what that's looking like. Into Vuhledar, and this is showing no different to what we've seen on the ISW over the last few days. Putin's press secretary, Dmitry Peskov, has today said there are no other ways for the Russian Federation, referring to the continuation of the war. Also saying the situation does not show prospects for peaceful settlement. I believe there is no other way but the continuation of this war currently. If Ukraine does make a deal, it sets a precedent that nations can land grab and bully their way into power and more land. But if Russia were to end the war, the bravado of being a powerful army and defeating what they say is an enemy on their doorstep is ultimately a failure, and Putin will subsequently fall, I believe. The issue is we don't know what extended war brings, and wider war is a serious possibility. I think if Putin knew this war would extend this far and the optics of this war, he would not have invaded. But I also think if the West knew Ukraine had this ability to fend off the Russians for this long, far more equipment, training, and treaties would have been in place, and treaties actually upheld as well. But I do think the one lifeline for Putin is the wording of the special operation. Now, we take the piss out of this a lot, but he's always said special operation, not war. Now, if it gets to a point where maybe he could sell a win to his supporters, then maybe we would see a change of direction. With the dead and wounded piling up, I'm unsure if he could in any way sell a win anything short of taking the entire country of Ukraine, even if this is not a possibility. Today, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who also visited Beijing with President Macron, said after a talk with Xi that he reiterated his willingness to speak to President Zelensky. Macron has said to Xi, "I know I can count on you to bring Russia back to its senses and everyone back to the negotiating table." Now, Xi really could be the only person who could actually do this. China is a wild card. And my question is, though, does China give a fuck about EU relations? Or even does it give a shit about Russia? It definitely doesn't care about certain minorities, even in its own country, or is it just chasing its own government's imperialistic dreams? As we've chased these before as well, at the massive expense of life. As the West and Russia scurry about tied up in war, is it giving China the ability to study modern war, build up the defense, and prepare for whatever comes next, being either economic opportunity or maybe terribly wider war? But that's it for me today. I know this isn't too news-oriented, but I just thought I'd get on and say some things and talk about some things that have been on my mind. So I hope you're having a good day. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll speak to you tomorrow. Okay, have a great day. Bye-bye.